A man approached with a smile, fixated on Tessa, and uttered a name I hadn't heard associated with her. She tightly gripped my arm, causing me discomfort. "Let's go." There was no preamble, no greeting, just a firm grasp around my wrist, and a woman I'd been married to for 22 years urgently whisking me away from a stranger who seemed intimately familiar to her. Our destination, Gate B17, Dallas-Fort Worth. We were en route to Chicago for my cousin Wade's wedding. Tessa was preoccupied with her phone near my feet. A routine Saturday morning, an ordinary couple preparing for a typical family event. The man emerged from the vicinity of the coffee stand, approximately mid-40s, clad in a navy blazer, pushing a small suitcase. Upon seeing her, he decelerated. Not shock, but rather recognition crossed his features. He halted 3 feet away from us. He stared directly at her and addressed her as Nicole. Tessa's thumb paused mid-scroll. The screen blackened in her hand. He moved another step nearer, addressing her as Nicole. "Hello," he replied casually. "I nearly didn't." She swiftly rose, causing her bag to tip, and said, "Don't touch me." But she directed those words at him rather than the other person. "Let's leave," he suggested. However, they weren't actually boarding. The screen above the gate agent displayed delayed. New time, 11:40 a.m., another 20 minutes to go. She guided me towards the restrooms, then past them, eventually leading me to an empty seating area near a window overlooking the runway. Her hand trembled noticeably. I could feel it through my jacket sleeve. I inquired about the man she had left behind. She shook her head. "Some stranger?" I asked. "I'm not sure," she replied. "Maybe he thought I was someone else." I glanced back at the terminal, where the man in a navy blazer remained, still holding his coffee, observing us depart. His expression wasn't puzzled. It was hurtful. Tessa deals in medical equipment, including high-end imaging devices, portable scanners, and such hardware that hospitals lease for 6 figures. She has been employed there for 8 years. 3 to 4 times monthly, I'd travel to Denver, Phoenix, Austin, occasionally Minneapolis. I spent 2 nights in each city using 3 Macs and then returned home. After the first year, I stopped tracking her city locations as her schedule dictated mine. The house, bills, lawn maintenance, and taking care of the dog were my responsibilities. Spanning 22 years, we'd established a stable yet unglamorous life. Our home was a 4-bedroom in Mesquite, complete with a workshop at the back where I repaired vintage receivers and turntables on weekends. We had paid off half of the mortgage, owned 2 functional cars, and lived a life that might not have made for an interesting story but was perfect for a typical Tuesday night. She had grown more detached in the recent months, with shorter calls and fewer trip details. However, Tessa had always been independent. This was what first attracted me to her when we met at a Fort Worth warehouse expo, and she declared she didn't require a ride home because she'd already arranged one. On my flight to Chicago, she dozed off against the window even before reaching cruising altitude. Tessa's phone lay in the seat pocket, its screen turned off. I studied it intently for quite some time. It read Nicole. The man had shown no hesitation or doubt. He strode towards her like an old acquaintance greeting a friend. Instead of declaring, "You've got the wrong person," Tessa uttered those words to me, as if suggesting an opinion I should hold. Chicago seemed peaceful on the outside. Wade's wedding was scheduled for Saturday evening at a downtown rooftop venue with a view of the lake. Tessa wore a green dress she had purchased just a week prior. She chuckled at the speeches, gripped my hand during the vows, and danced with my Aunt Patris. If onlookers were to judge, they would have thought we made an appealing pair. My cousin, pulling me aside at the bar, expressed his opinion that Tessa was the best thing to ever happen to me. I thanked him and requested another bourbon. Still, she kept glancing at her phone, brief looks, screen locking and unlocking. Every time, her face briefly tightened before resuming its usual expression. At the toast, she departed twice, returning each time with a constricted smile. Upon returning to the reception, she passed me her cell phone, instructing me to capture a photo of her alongside my mother. I took 3 snaps, capturing Tessa and Wade's wife in front of the Chicago skyline. She reclaimed her phone, entered her passcode, 4711, our old house number on Ridgeway, a combination she hadn't touched for years, but which she'd never forgotten due to its lack of use. Back at the hotel, she discarded her heels, brushed her teeth, and was asleep by 11, snoozing in her familiar position with an arm dangling off the bed. Her phone lay on the nightstand, charging, its screen dark but displaying 4711. I picked it up, finding her messages to be unremarkable. Correspondence with her sister, her sales team, and a baby shower discussion group. No communication containing the name Drew or any unknown male contacts. I almost replaced the device, then spotted an unfamiliar green app icon. This was absent from my personal phone. Stashed within a folder titled Work Tools, alongside a calculator and scanner app, I found a different account name, Nicole Pryor. It wasn't Tessa, but her maiden name. The initial discussion held the name Drew. Upon opening it, I discovered messages dating back 18 months, numerous ones totaling hundreds. They contained images of restaurant tables, hotel balconies, and a sunset that seemed to be over the Rockies. He addressed her as Nick, while she referred to him as D. There were voice messages I chose not to listen to. The most recent exchange was from that morning, the day of the airport. Drew had messaged, "Spotted you at DFW today. You were with a man, everything all right?" Tessa hadn't responded. I continued scrolling. A thread from 2 weeks ago surfaced. She had written, "Just 3 more days until I see you. I'm all anticipation." He had responded, "Denver longs for you, Nick. I miss you too." For 18 months, every Denver business trip, each 2-night stay, every brief call from the hotel room where she informed me the conference extended late, and she was too drained to converse. I positioned the phone back on the bedside table, maintaining the identical angle and position with the charger plugged in. She remained motionless. The flight journey home was 4 hours of quiet that Tessa appeared oblivious to. She perused a magazine, requested ginger ale, remarked that Wade's wife seemed amiable, but the cake was dry. I subtly nodded at appropriate instances, drove us home from the airport without activating the radio. That night she retired early. I spent the evening in the workshop, door shut, and a device I'd been repairing for 3 months on the workbench before me. I refrained from tinkering with it. Here's what I ascertained. My spouse was leading a double life under an alternate identity, another name, and using a separate app for over a year and a half. The man at the airport, Drew, believed he was involved with a woman named Nicole Pryor. A single, accessible, and his. Here's what I determined. I wouldn't confront her immediately. Not until she had lost her footing. But first, I needed to safeguard my possessions. On Monday morning, I arrived late to work and proceeded to a family law office situated on Greenville Avenue. Grace Villanueva was the attorney who greeted me. She was precise, succinct, and economical with her words. I divulged my entire situation, 22 years of marriage, a house in Mesquite co-owned, joint savings, and evidence confirming my wife's affair through her own messages. Grace swiftly summarized the Texas laws for me. Anything earned during the marriage gets divided equally, but if infidelity is proven, the injured party receives a more favorable settlement. She advised me to immediately freeze our joint account and retain an attorney, suggestions I promptly acted upon by heading straight to the bank from her office and subsequently hiring counsel. Once the necessary paperwork was underway, I recalled a decision I had been mulling over since Gate B17, reaching out to Drew on LinkedIn. Come Tuesday afternoon, with my warehouse office door closed, I initiated contact through LinkedIn. His profile identified him as Drew, specializing in medical purchasing, based in Denver, details that mirrored the man I had encountered at the airport. It only took a few minutes for me to realize his last name was Hadley, and the accompanying photo showed an individual matching the man from the airport. A man in a navy blazer with the same jawline and easy smile as my mystery acquaintance. In Denver, I worked as a procurement manager for a large medical company. The desk phone rang 3 times and Drew answered. "This is Drew Hadley." I maintained a calm tone. "I'm Marshall," I said, calling about Tessa Pryor. A pause on his end followed. Then with caution he responded, "And you are?" Inquisitive. Yes, her husband was my identity. The line grew quiet, so much so that I assumed he had hung up. However, Drew's voice returned, shaky. "Wait a moment. Tessa isn't married," he explained. "Her real name is Tessa, not Nicole. She took on the surname 22 years ago when we got married. They reside in Mesquite, Texas. On a Saturday morning at DFW, you approached her at Gate B17 and referred to her as Nicole. Before you could finish your sentence, she grabbed my arm and led me away." His breaths became quicker and shorter. "I don't wish to argue with you, Drew," I stated. "Instead, I am making this call because you have a right to know who you have been seeing for the past 18 months. Her actual name is Tessa. She is 44 years old, and she is my wife. Everything she told you about Nicole was fabricated." Another silence ensued. Drew questioned why I was disclosing this information, because she deceived both of us. I ended the call. On Wednesday evening, Tessa returned home after a day trip to Austin or wherever she had truly been. I was in the workshop. She called my name from the kitchen, but I didn't respond. She approached the workshop door and leaned against the frame, asking if I was all right since I had been quiet. I remained focused on the bench without looking up. It had been a tiring week at the warehouse. Tessa waited for a while before me, expecting a response I wasn't going to give. Eventually, she went inside, heated leftovers, and ate alone at the kitchen table. I heard the microwave beep, her eating sounds, and later the dishes being placed in the sink. Good, let her get accustomed to it. Unbeknownst to her, a man in Denver had spent the past 48 hours discovering that the woman he adored was non-existent. She was also unaware of the existence of a divorce attorney's consultation summary in my truck. She hadn't realized that the shared account used for travel expenses needed both signatures for withdrawals. That night, she proposed a weekend getaway to Fredericksburg, mentioning a bed and breakfast she found online, suggesting it could be peaceful since there were only 2 of them now, unlike the past 18 months. Maybe, I replied, asking to review the schedule first. However, the schedule was already filled. She simply wasn't aware yet. Thursday evening was already booked. That night, I overheard her voice from the kitchen window as Drew called Tessa. Her tone indicated she was being informed of an unwelcome truth. Sharp and swift, followed by a period of quietness, then a renewed, hurried attempt to change his mind. He ended the call nonetheless, which was evident in the ensuing silence. Approximately 20 minutes later, she entered the workshop, her eyes red and phone in hand. She hesitated at the doorway as if questioning the stability of the floor beneath her. I announced, "Drew contacted you," serving as my initial statement. Not a query, rather a statement cloaked in interrogative form, her expression altered thrice in quick succession. Surprise, calculation, and an emotion I had never observed from Tessa. Fear. It wasn't fear directed towards me, it was fear of the truth I already possessed. "Marshall, attend to me," I interjected, urging her to sit down. She occupied a stool near the workbench. From the drawer behind the receiver, I extracted a single printed document, a screenshot. It displayed the message she had sent to Drew. 3 more days and I get to see you," followed by a digital heart symbol attributed to an account registered under Nicole Pryor. I placed it on the workbench between us. Discussed Nicole with me, she attempted 3 different strategies within 10 minutes. Firstly, downplaying it wasn't what it appeared. It was just conversing, without any physical interaction. The text suggested something different, followed by evasion. "Did you go through my phone? You violated my privacy with that action." Marshall. Then came the breakdown, tears, shaking. I admit I made a mistake. I felt lonely. The traveling was isolating and he was nearby. Through everything, I managed to stand firm, hands in pockets, waiting. When she finished speaking, I uttered a single sentence. "You didn't make a mistake, Tessa. You created an entire persona. You chose a name for it. You sustained it for 18 months. That's not loneliness, that's a project." The workshop fell silent. Not even the dog outside could be heard pacing. Tessa seemed frozen, staring at the printout on the workbench as if it would ignite. Her lips moved, but no words emerged. I allowed the silence to linger. She needed to feel the burden of it. "Then Drew already knows everything," you said. "He informed you 20 minutes ago that he's done with you. Grace Villanueva is dealing with the rest." The account is frozen. The house is mine. Tessa's eyes widened. "You already knew. When did you find out?" "This happened the day after Chicago." She seemed to gaze at me as if I were a stranger. Perhaps I was. Tessa departed last Saturday. Her sister Janelle arrived from San Antonio with an empty SUV. Tessa collected 3 suitcases, 2 boxes of books, and a garment bag. She took the coffee maker, which I didn't contest. At the door, she glanced back. "Can we have a genuine conversation, not one mediated by lawyers? We've been together for 22 years, Tessa." It turned out that only I used my real name. Janelle loaded the last box. The SUV drove off our driveway. Our dog watched from the front window, tail drooping, uncomprehending why the house now carried a cardboard odor. That afternoon, I reached out to Ray for assistance in shifting the workbench to another wall. He arrived with beer and asked no questions until the bench was in place. Then he inquired about Tessa's return. No, she wasn't. It was good news. He handed me a bottle. Although I appeared worse for wear, at least I was still standing. Ray's assessment was accurate on both counts. On Monday morning, Grace texted me. Tessa's lawyer had responded. She conceded to giving up the house. However, she asked for her fair share of the savings, approximately 40%, along with her personal possessions as stipulated by their arrangement. A straightforward division with no conflicts. There would be no disputes. I messaged Grace back with my approval and urged us to move forward in 2 weeks. The house seemed more tranquil than anticipated. Not eerily quiet, but rather a distinct change. The extra toothbrush was missing from the bathroom. Her dress's hanging spaces were empty in the closet. The table mat on the kitchen table was now alone. The dog had started sleeping in the hallway, halfway between the bedroom and the front door, as if still expecting Tessa to return and complete the equation. By Thursday evening, I had completed the restoration of the receiver I had been working on since January, a 1971 Marantz 2230. The walnut casing, original knobs, and clear sound quality were all intact. I placed it on the shelf in the workshop, connected a pair of old Advents to it, and tuned it to a station playing music with a horn section. The dog ambled in from the kitchen and settled on the cold concrete floor. My phone vibrated. Grace Villanueva texted, "Yours now, house." "Paperwork tomorrow," she added. I read it again, setting my phone on the workbench. My gaze swept the room, my tools, receiver, and everything in their precise locations. This wasn't anyone else's space, just mine. The music played outside, accompanied by the gentle ambience of a mesquite evening, warm air, a quiet street, the neighbor's sprinkler ticking in the dark. I locked the front door, savoring the moment. My house, my lock, my night. Tomorrow was Friday, and Ray had invited us for dinner at the Beltline place. I had already agreed.